Instead is an India rubber gorilla flexing her hand above her crotch. Olympia exists on the edge of being invisible altogether, or if visible, then obscene. She's a chaos of incomprehensible signs. Let me make that point again by looking at the best piece of criticism Olympia received in 1865. It was written by someone calling himself Jean Ravenel, and was published in a newspaper of the far-left opposition named L'Époque. Listen to Ravenel's reaction, and picture Manet's image surrounded by nudes as smooth and shadowy and watertight as these. This photograph was taken, in fact, in 1865, and it shows some of Olympia's neighbours.
Painting of the school of Baudelaire, freely executed by a pupil of Goya. The vicious strangeness of the little Faubourienne, woman of the night, out of the bar of Paul Niquet, out of the mysteries of Paris and the nightmares of Edgar Poe. Her look has the sourness of someone prematurely aged, her face the disturbing perfume of a fleur du mal. The body fatigued, corrupted, but painted under a single transparent light with the shadows light and fine. The bed and the pillows put down in a velvet modulated grey, the shoulder and arm solidly established in a clean and pure light. The cat, arching his back, makes the visitor laugh and relax, and that's what saves Monsieur Manet from a popular execution.
Ravenel appears to get the picture right. He ties it down to Baudelaire and to Goya. He calls up the associations with Eugène Sue's stories of the Parisian lower depths. He refers to Poe. He even sees that Olympia is a petite Faubourienne. In other words, she's a girl from the working class faubourg, a real prostitute as opposed to an imaginary one. He happens on all the right points of reference, and one can sense him struggling to put them into some kind of order, to make them add up to a sequence of sense. But they don't add up. The criticism enacts the instability of Olympia's meanings. The peculiar staccato rhythm of the writing is Ravenel's way of showing meaning eluding his grasp. I believe it's obvious that Manet intended in Olympia to make a modern nude. And that involved putting together the two terms nudity and prostitution. In other words, showing the naked female body as it actually occurred in a particular 19th century situation. Showing it as something made up for an occasion, addressed to the viewer, the client, the voyeur. I would go so far as to say that Manet managed in Olympia to show the naked body as one kind of commodity among others, provided by one kind of proletariat. By putting the terms nudity and prostitution together, and showing how the one term inflected the other at every point, altering the pose, the expression, the very articulation of the woman's undressed body, by doing this, Manet destroyed the grand and elaborate generalities of the nude as a form of art. He produced instead a particular body, possessed of a specific, not a generic sexuality, a sexuality constructed and held quite tensely for the purpose of sale. Let me come back to the bar at the Folies Bergère. I should add, in the light of what I've said about Olympia, that this too is most probably a picture of a prostitute, though this time in disguise. People would in any case have known in 1882 that barmaids at the Folies Bergères were available for money. The guidebooks and the gossip columns made a point of letting the innocent tourist in on the secret. So the subject is essentially the same as in 1865. And the question I'm asking is the same in both cases. Was that subject readable? And above all, was it readable in and through the form of the picture itself? Could flatness, for instance, be construed as an aspect of the form of life being shown? I don't think, to make it clear, that a cut-and-dried answer to any of these questions is possible or even desirable. But I stand by the main point of my Ravenel example, that modernist art exists at the edge of insignificance, that it stands in constant danger of not being understood even by those who sympathize with it, and even less, I suspect, by those who actually collect it. Pictures like the bar, I believe, intend to show us a certain kind of blankness and dissociation of the self, a failure to achieve or sustain meaning, lurking underneath the appeal of modernity. They want to inscribe that blankness into the picture's form, the way it's painted and put together. And they hope, I think, that doing so would serve to make the emptiness and dissociation visible as the great fact of the 19th century. But does it? The history of modernist art suggests that several other things might happen instead. First, there's a danger that because contradiction and superficiality are found to be everywhere in the picture, there on the level of form just as much as that of content, and because those qualities are to some extent orchestrated on the formal level, they may come to seem at best inescapable and at worst enticing. Second, there's a danger that the work of flattening and break-up on the formal level may be done, as it were, too effectively, and that what results is a simple disconnection between form and content. That, so I've been arguing here, is what seems to have happened to Olympia. And third, the audience for modernist art may decide that flatness and formal ambiguity have a meaning somehow in their own right, that their meaning is formal, and that modern art exists to declare that those are the only meanings left, or left to art. I may as well state straight out that that last manoeuvre seems to me a fairly useless one. I think it's incoherent on logical grounds, and anyway, it is rank bad history. The picture it produces of modernist art is straightforwardly false as a description of that art's intentions and development. It leaves out of account, for instance, the desperation with which art continued to search for something in the world besides itself to paint, let alone its search for a practice, political perhaps, or ideological, to become part of. But it is an understandable move all the same. It's not surprising that it comes to seem the most plausible account of modernism on offer, because it points to the problems I've been trying to describe and appears to offer a solution to them. There's a thin line, in other words, between a depiction of the circumstances in which meanings are lost or emasculated and the loss of meaning altogether. The bar and Olympia, I've been suggesting, exist just on that thin line. And in a sense, that is where modernist art has to exist. It's the only place allotted to it, the only place in which, so it believes, meanings of any kind, even the meanings of emptiness and ambiguity, can be kept alive.